Hi class, my name is Haman Alimi, and this is my video discussion for applied discussion forum 4. Yes, and the first question goes, what do you think of Buckingham and Goodall's 2019 definition of leadership? A leader is someone who has followers, plain and simple. And according to this definition, leadership should not be a primary role because of their title, charisma, strategy, communication skills, or prescribed list of competences. Instead, the most concrete evidence of leadership is that people voluntarily choose to follow you. And social media provides provides an interesting illustration of this definition of Buckingham and Goodall. A leader um, has it separates formal authority from from formal authority from followership. Social media has created an environment in which individuals can with no formal offices at all, and yet they can attract thousands or millions of followers who will voluntarily share, imitate, um, donate, purchase, organize, take action in response to what that individual says. Now, Harvard Business Review similarly notes that influencers in influencer industry has substantially rearranged how information culture are created, marketed, and shared. So social media has therefore made one element of leadership unusually visible, and this element is people can choose who they follow independent of formal hierarchy. Successful creators are rare for because they demonstrate very desirable leadership competences, but usually because these people have they pronounce there's unusual something pronounced about them. It could be expertise, information, humor, storytelling, courage, beauty, style, travel expertise, fitness expertise, football knowledge, activism, creativity, or a distinctive personality. Now, Buckingham and Goodall's language, this is personal spikes. Now, an individual may have weaknesses, but followers tolerate some of these tolerate these shortcomings because one is particularly good at something. And Buckingham and Goodall talk about followership involving forgiveness. People continue to follow despite the leader's flaw. And social media make this visible every day. Influencers often have in, intensely loyal communities, not because they appear universally competent, but because audiences know very clearly what that person stands for or what that person is especially good at. So why do people now choose to follow? According to Birmingham, people follow leaders who create confidence in uncertain future. They connect this directly to the 80 engagements that were introduced earlier in the book. And this one talk about the best of me, best of me and best of we. So with the best of we, a sense of belonging to something meaningful is provided, and the best of me, a sense that their individual strength contribution matter. They say people who follow leaders who connect them to mission they believe in, clarify that it's expected to surround them with people who share their their standards and value, strength, create mutual support, recognize excellence. Now, most important of this for the author, this is Buckingham and Goodall. Leadership argument is confidence is in the future. The follower involves that following involves an example that forwards gives a leader some degree of trust, effort, attention, loyalty, or control over the future. And in return, the leader reduces uncertainty by demonstrating mastery in something that matters to the followers. Now, social media has also changed the power of relationship between leaders and followers. There is another followers, and how has it done this? It has made communication both ways. That even the followers in this time around, they can publicly challenge leaders, they can fact check them, they can unfollow them, organize against them, amplify or suppress. They can communicate directly with one another, withdraw attention almost instantly, and this makes leadership more irrational and conditional. Social media has also um, social media also changes how followers experience leadership. Here, digital communication has created a degree of proximity that was historically difficult to achieve. Leaders can communicate directly with the followers every day rather than principally through formal speeches, letters, intermediaries, newspapers, television, or organizational announcements. Now, social media gives a leader an unprecedented number of opportunities to create or to dissuade those feelings. Now, there. Now, to understand the impact of social media to leadership, let's imagine the time of Martin Luther King. I mean, his communications they were shared through newspapers, churches, meetings, speeches, letters, and still Buckingham here says that and the emphasis that what ultimately mattered was not simply King's extraordinary speaking ability, but the fact that people accepted personal risk to follow him. Now imagine the same process in today's digital environment. His speech would circulate instantly. Supporters would organize through WhatsApp, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Hashtags would connect geographically, disperse, despite supporters live streaming could all could, could could allow millions to participate virtually. So technology could drastically increase the speed and scale of followership. But Buckingham and Goodwill fundamental test would remain unchanged. Yeah. Question number 2. What new insights have you gained about Martin Luther King Jr.? Discuss him as a leader and also his followers. And then also goes on, what about other leaders Buckingham and Goodwill mentioned? Warren Buffett, Winston Churchill, King George VI, Susan B. Anthony, Steve Jobs, General George Patton, and President John F. Kennedy. Let's start with Martin Luther King. The most important insight I gained about Martin Luther King is that Buckingham encouraged us to understand his leadership, studying his followers, rather than simply categorizing his personal characteristics. They discussed a photo that was taken during the Montgomery bus boycott in February of 1956, showing King and 11 other men after their arrest. What is striking is that these followers were prepared to accept substantial personal risk because they believed in the future King was describing. This makes King a powerful illustration of the author's argument. Leadership is not a thing because it cannot be measured reliably. Followership is a thing because it can. Now, King's strength therefore was not that he possessed every desirable leadership competence. Rather, he would take fear uncertainty, and injustice is experienced by his followers and transform them into confidence in a different future. His speeches were powerful not simply because he was an excellent speaker, but because they enabled people to see and believe in the future that did not yet exist. Followers were consequently just as important to understanding Kingi's leadership as King himself. Without people willing to march, boycott buses, face arrests, and continue supporting the civil rights struggle, King's leadership would not have existed in a practice sense proposed by Buckingham. And leadership becomes really real when someone chooses to follow. Another important insight is that powerful leaders can be paralyzing. A leader does not necessarily need everybody to approve of them. King attracted intensely imitated followers while simultaneously provoking intense opposition. This supports Beckham's and Goodall's broader point that exceptional leaders tend to be distinctive rather than universally appealing. Now about other leaders. Buckingham strengthens their argument by considering every different leader, the difference among them, precisely the point. For example, Warren Buffett demonstrated that leaders does not require stereotype charisma, commanding personality. His distinctive strength lies elsewhere in the extraordinary mastery of investment and capital allocation and the confidence that mastery creates. The lesson I take from Buffett is that expertise itself can attract followers. We don't necessarily follow someone because they look or sound like a leader. We may follow because they demonstrate extraordinary depth in something important. Another example, Winston Churchill illustrated a different form of leadership. His capacity to use language to create confidence during profound uncertainty became especially significant during British's darkest period in the Second World War. The important point is not that every leader should imitate Churchill's communication style. It is that Churchill found his own distinctive mechanism for giving followers confidence. King George VI is particularly interesting because of the challenges one of our assumptions about leadership most directly. He famously struggled with public speaking, yet became an important symbol of national resolve during the Second World War. He excellently communicated where an essential universal leadership competence, as Buckingham and Goodall point out. King George should be disqualified, yet history demonstrates otherwise. Susan B. Anthony similarly illustrates leadership through intense commitment to a cause. Her leadership cannot be separated from the mission around which followers gathered, the campaign for women's rights and suffrage. Her example reinforces the idea that followers are attracted not simply to personalities but to leaders who connect them with a future they deeply want to see realized. Steve Jobs is perhaps one of the clearest examples of what Buckingham and Goodall called the leader's spikes. Jobs was certainly not well-rounded. He could be impatient, controlling, and difficult, yet he possessed extraordinary mastery around product design and interpretation of technology and user experience. Buckingham explains that followers could see that Jobs was extraordinarily deep in something that matters. This produces one of the most useful ideas again from the chapter. We follow a leader because he is deep in something and he knows what something is. General Potter Patton provides an even more challenging example. He was courageous, disciplined, and military effective, but Buckingham and Goodall also point to serious shortcomings, including his notorious treatment of soldiers suffering psychological trauma. Their point is not to excuse those shortcomings, rather, Patton demonstrates the difficulty of constructing a universal list of leadership virtues, such as then claiming that every successful leader possesses them. President John F. Kennedy, likewise, helps demonstrate that real leaders rarely correspond perfectly to idealized leadership models. Leadership theories often work backwards. We identify successful leaders, select qualities they possess, call those qualities leadership, and then tell aspiring leaders to acquire them. But another successful leader may possess completely different combinations of strengths and weaknesses. The bigger lesson forwards tell us whether leadership exists. The biggest insight I gained from all the examples in Buckingham and Goodall shifts the question from what qualities makes one a leader to why would someone choose to follow this person? That is profound change. King, Churchill, Buffett, Jobs, Anthony, Patton, Kennedy, and George VI were very different people. Trying to identify one personality profile shared by all of them is extremely difficult. That is precisely why Buckingham and Goodall concluded that high performance in leadership is idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic. The better people become at leading, the more instinctively themselves they need to become. Followers, however, reveal something more consistent. Buckingham and Goodall argue that people follow leaders who create particular experiences for them. Connection to meaningful mission, clarity about expectation, confidence in teammates, recognition of individual strength, opportunities for growth, and ultimately confidence in the future. They are not characteristics of the leader, they are feelings experienced by the follower. My reflection: the lesson I have taken from Martin Luther King Jr. and the other leaders is that I should be courteous about trying to become a complete leader by copying the characteristics of famous people, trying to communicate like King, innovate like Jobs, inspire like Churchill, invest like Buffett, command like Patton would probably result in imitation rather than authentic leadership. Instead, Buckingham and Goodall argue that argument challenges me to identify my own leadership spikes, the thing I do distinctively well, and because increasingly excel at using them to give other people confidence. It also changes how I evaluate leadership. Rather than asking whether someone looks like a leader or possesses a predetermined list of competence, I would ask, are people choosing to follow this person? Do these followers understand the mission? Do they know what is expected of them? Do they feel what their strengths matter? Are they challenged to grow? Most important, do they have greater confidence in the future because of this leader? Martin Luther King Jr. demonstrated this particularly powerful. His leadership cannot be fully understood simply by studying King. We also have to look at the people who chose to follow him, what they were prepared to sacrifice, and the future he enabled them to believe was possible. That to me is what most significant insight from Buckingham and Goodall treatment of leadership. Thank you.